So let me read about Jim. Jim Stevens grew up in Illinois and Wisconsin and has since lived on both the East and West coasts. He graduated in 1972 from Northwestern University at the top of his class in industrial engineering and management sciences. So this was written in what year, Jim? Because I'm sure the information is I'm sure you've lived in more places than the East and the West Coast, right? Because this was written in
What else is there besides the left and the right and the middle?
right, exactly. So he goes on to say, looking for the purpose of life and true happiness, he hitchhiked to California. There he encountered the scientific and understandable God of principles and universal laws that he could believe in. This grew into many profound experiences in his spiritual life. He developed a passion to share inspirational experiences and research into God's nature, God's creation, and God's plan for us. He has had the good fortune to travel throughout the United States, around the world 2 times, and over 40 times to Japan and Korea as a program organizer and lecturer. His wife is native born Japanese, and they have 5 grown children, all married and building families. He and his wife led a marriage ministry for 5 years and have helped countless relationships. This book is the result of a profound experience with God after Jim prayed to offer the rest of his life to help bring God's literal kingdom on earth. Amen.
Got one addition.
Yes. Huh?
Got one addition. 12 grandchildren.
Oh my goodness.
Yep.
Okay.
Wow. Congratulations.
Wow. Oh my
Thank you.
goodness. Yes. So do you want to add anything to that, Jim, or do you want to say a little bit or anything, Hiromi-san, before I start to ask you some questions?
Nope.
No?
Go for it.
Okay. So the first question is, please tell us about an experience you had that absolutely confirmed the existence of God to you as a reality.
Yeah, I thought a long time about that one. In When I first heard the divine principle, there's two lectures that really blew me away. The first one was the principle of creation, uh, and particularly the dual natures of God. When I heard that, I finally, I felt I met the truth that was already in my heart that I knew, but it was the first time it had ever been explained to me in a way that made enough sense that I could accept God. And then I almost immediately had a deep experience of like the colors that day. Just everything changed. Everything was brighter, and it was just a really deep experience. The second lecture that really touched my heart was the Jesus lecture. I had made a lot of effort in college and stuff to organize things for people, and I got persecuted, and I got criticized, and it just I really felt I understood what Jesus went through when he tried to do good, and they killed him in the end. And I was so moved. I couldn't eat. I couldn't have give and take with anybody, and that was the beginning of my, total, um, let me say, connecting with God, the beginning. So it was a long time ago, 1973. Uh, but still, the experiences you have with God, they stay with you all your life. They don't fade very much. I can't remember what I had for breakfast, but I can remember my experiences with God. Kind
Wow.
of funny. But no, it's great. It's great. And I come to believe that in God's original ideal, we should have experiences with Him like that every day, all the time. We live cut off to a large extent from God.
Yes. Thank you. And while we're listening, you can take notes, you guys, and ask questions. I'm sorry, go on, Jim.
No, I was finished with that thought, but
Okay.
I feel funny. You saying people can take notes.
Oh, no, I mean, because,
You can
even
write
as
down questions. Yes.
yes,
There you go.
yes,
There you go.
yes. Because even as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking of things I would like to ask you, but yeah, I want to give everyone a chance.
Sure.
Okay. Well, can you tell us about a time that God taught you something in a way you were not expecting?
Yeah. Yeah, I got a good one on that. Um, I was in either Nebraska or South Dakota to give a workshop. And I was praying before the lecture, and I got to the section on growth. And so I prayed to better understand growth so I could share it, because it's always been my experience that the divine principle is really God's love for us, and you can find it in there all the time. So I ask for a good example in my prayer. I ask for a good example to help people understand growth, why that was an expression of God's love. And uh, God kind of downloaded to me this series of pictures, like you sometimes you see in the comic strips. This happens and this happens and that happens.
Yeah.
And the first one was um, a husband and wife decide to have a child, so they go to bed at night, they sleep, they have sex, and then next day the child is born.
Good example.
So how's that feel?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty
Exhausting.
crazy, right? You go, whoa. No, I can see why 9 months is a growing and give and take, and that's really, really a precious time to experience God's love and love for each other and love for the child. The growing is really important, right? That was the first picture. Then the second picture was husband and wife go to bed, have sex, and the next day they have a 5-year-old child.
Oh my goodness.
How's that? You miss changing diapers, and you miss the terrible twos, and you miss all those things because the child's 5 years old.
You go
But
right into
you
the
think,
frustrating fives.
what's that? The frustrating fives. Yeah, but you realize when you think about it that all of that, you know, the messes that the child makes and all the investment that it takes with a baby is so much, but still, that is love growing all the time. And then the third picture was they go to bed and have sex, and the next day they have a teenager.
My goodness.
So how's that? Or they have an adult the next day. You know. So I really felt that the way God created is the best, and it's we can take all of life as an expression of God's love if we understand it that way. And It's very, very precious. Every relationship is so precious. Uh, you know, if we do it with God, of course. Next question.
Wow. Okay. Um, yes, I wanted to ask if you could share about your shed.
My what?
Your shed, the shed on your land.
What?
So, do you remember
I can't catch the word. Ted.
shed
You know,
your
I don't remember that story.
Oh,
You
okay.
better you better tell that story.
I'll remind you. Okay. So I was doing some practice shooting on Jim's land few summers ago.
I have a shooting range in my backyard.
Yes.
Okay.
And you were telling me about like a shed that you were building and how I don't want to say the good part. But you said that you had, like, God helped you to build it, or the angels helped you to build it because it was crooked. Like there was something wrong with it. And then you got some inspiration. Like they told you you have to change something, like to straighten it out. You don't remember?
It still doesn't ring a bell.
Oh,
I'm
no.
sorry.
Yes, I remember you were showing me the shed, and then you said how, because you had built it,
Yeah.
and then there was something sort of you didn't realize, but there was something wrong with it, and you said you, like, the angels or God helped you to say you have to build it this certain way. Like, to still, you don't remember? Oh, wow.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
It
okay.
probably happened. I didn't lie to you.
Wow.
But I mean, I don't know if other people do, but I get, communications all the time. Thoughts come into my mind. If I'm trying to figure out how to do something, I'll get ideas that just pop into my mind, and I go, "Thank you." I don't know who did it, but it wasn't my mind that created that idea. It just came in there. So I think all of us have lots of angels or other spirits that help us, give us ideas if we pay attention.
Hmm. Do you remember one that happened recently that you can share with us?
Whoa.
I'm sorry, I know I didn't
Yeah, you
I didn't
didn't
ask you that
prepare me for
before.
that one. Recently, why don't we go to the next question?
Okay. Okay. So the next one is for us. So what would you say are key things that we need to do in order to start feeling the reality of a loving God in our daily lives?
Um, an important thing I learned a while back from the Second King was that faith doesn't come automatically. Faith is a gift from God, and we have to ask for it. And I think that's really important that all of the inspirations that I've gotten over the years and the things that I've done, I believe, came as a result of wanting to know the answer and asking a question and seeking something, a deeper understanding. Um, I'll give you an example. When the kids were young and they were approaching the age when they start teaching sex education in school, that disturbed me because I didn't want the teachers doing that. I mean, they're, you know, homosexual stuff and all that. So I prayed about it, and God really helped me understand that it was the parents' job to teach the kids about sex. And the parents are the role model. The parents are like God for the children. And so I think I collaborated with God on this one, and we decided that when the child turns 10 years old on their birthday, Dad would take them out to a restaurant and have dessert, and then Dad would explain all about sex. And I was willing to go into every detail that they were willing to to listen to until they said that's enough. I mean, you can imagine I was descriptive about what mom and dad do, how babies are born. And then that became the tradition in our family from there. So as each child turned 10 years old, Dad took them out for dessert and gave the talk. And, once two of them had heard the talk, then they could talk to each other about the talk, right? So after number five was done, then the whole family was wide open about sex and parenting and children. And so we could even discuss it at the dinner table. So I believe that came from God. I ended up writing that testimony and sharing it with the Blessed Family Department. And actually, when the second queen heard about it, she asked me for a copy, and she translated it into Korean and sent it over to Korea.
Wow.
So that's, I'm not taking credit for that. God gave that to me, but that's why I think it can go viral, because other people connect to God through that. And so if you you ask God a question, but it's not just for you, really. Ideally, it can be something that you can share with others as well. That's why I always tell people, learn how to lecture. Or if you're not going to learn how to lecture, at least learn one section of the divine principle, like the four fallen natures. Learn that and then be able to understand how to apply it in your life and share it with other people. And that was, in my book, I don't know if you all heard my testimony about where the origin of the book was. Let me explain that quickly. I was 62 years old. I was thinking, okay, my life's going down from here. And, the end is coming. What can I do for God for the rest of my life? Whatever I got left, how can I offer it? So I prayed that prayer, and then I got this overwhelming feeling from God of loneliness. Just the whole universe. God is so lonely. And the words came, my children don't know me. And I realize that's so true. Who understands God? Who thinks about God all the time? Who has a parent relationship with God? And there's people out there trying to deny that God even exists. And that's actively, trying to. So anyway, from that, I decided I wanted to help people realize that God exists. And then from there, they can go forward to build a relationship with God once it's proven to them that God exists. So that was, where the origin of my book came from. So I just started, and I didn't know where it was going to go. I went on. I started a Google blog, and I did proof number one, and it turned out that was pretty appropriate, male and female. There's only male and female. But, as time went along, I would finish a proof, and right away I just pray, okay, what's next? And I would start researching. I just look here and there, and everywhere for something that was interesting. So I would probably maybe 5, 10, 15 different topics would come up. I would set some aside, but when one hit me like, wow, that's really amazing, then I'd start writing about that one. And some of them took a lot longer because there's so much information, like, like the eye. I mean, there's total miracles one after another. So some took longer than others. Some I had to take a lot of information to make it small. Some were just simple logical things that were just amazing, amazing, unbelievable. If you took all the empty space out of all the human beings on Earth, we would all fit inside a sugar cube.
Right.
That's the proof called empty space. And I realized from that, well, really all we are is energy, actually. We don't, you look in the atom, you don't know if it's a wave or it's a particle, I don't know. So we're just energy, and we're on a different plane than the spirit world. Someday we are partly spiritual actually now. So we're just gonna lose our bodies and go up there. So, one after another, the proofs came, and they came from every different direction. It was amazing. And when I looked at it when I was done, I thought, wow, there's something in here for everybody. You don't have to read it sequentially. You can jump around with that. But I just had so many amazing thoughts. Sometimes I would pray, God, what do you want me to do today? Work on your book. So, it's been a while that it was finished, and I always get good comments. I always, appreciate it. I don't know how many people have been influenced so far, but I had one guy write me and said I saved his life. He was thinking of committing suicide. But, I proved God existed to him, so changed his mind. I forgot your question.
Oh no.
Got carried away there. Sorry.
I sort of did too.
You said two things about two things about.
Oh yes. They were key things that we should do in order
What we could do.
Yes.
Yeah, faith. Build your faith, and the other is speak the principle.
Mm-hmm.
Speak, and it doesn't have to be divine principle. It could be a proof for God. It could be, but a lot of people won't talk about politics or religion, so they kind of push you off, and so we get intimidated to talk to people about God. But you'll be surprised that people actually do want to talk about God, but they don't want to be pressured, So
And
start those conversations.
and I think
We'll figure out a way to do it naturally,
Yeah, I think also like the context that you presented God, it makes people because there's like different approaches you can use, but when you're using things in nature, this is what really blew me away about the book. For example, the acacia tree and the ants. Like, they live for each other. They protect each other. You all have to read that one. That's one of my favorites. It's credible. And I think one of my other favorites is about whales. As they swim deeper. And I didn't know any of this, until I read the book, but as they swim deeper, their internal organs change. Can you imagine? Can you imagine their their I don't know what it is. I can't remember now. Their digestive system or their respiratory system changes so that they could be deep underwater and not hurt themselves, be damaged. Can you imagine? Like your internal organs just change. So, I mean, come on.
The one thing I always remember about that proof was the way they feed their babies. Because they're mammals, they feed their babies milk, but you can't squirt milk out in the ocean, so they squirt toothpaste kind of stuff, milk, like toothpaste.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that kind of stuff just blows me away too. I mean, giraffes, camels, all those are just. I feel like children just would love those and really relate to those.
Yes. Well, okay then. So, what are you all thinking? Is there something that you would like to ask Jim or make a comment or just ask anything? You know, it's actually quite a serious topic to I know when I was reading the proofs, I have to say, um, the confirmation of God really came to me, in ways that I hadn't experienced for a long time in my life. So, so yes, just share what you would like. Yeah. Go on, Fred. Do you want to say something?
Could you elaborate more? You said something about the eye, because I know one time I read where Father said, you need not know nothing more than examine the human eye to prove the existence of God. Like he was talking about, he was debunking Darwin's theory of evolution. How can something like the human eye just evolve on its own?
Oh yeah. I actually did two proofs on the eye. Well, one was on the eye and one was on the retina. There's a lot of facts. Let me go to the proof. The human eye can detect 7 to 10 million different colors,
Yeah.
more than any machine can detect. Photoreceptor cells in our eyes can catch a single photon. The evolutionists that try and explain how the eye evolved is so pathetic. It's like, are you kidding me? And the retina, the retina is the thickness of saran wrap, and yet it contains all the rods and cones for you to be able to see. The retina of the human eye is made up of an average of 120 million rods and cones, each with their own neuron that carries the messages to the brain. So 120 million connections to the brain. Different types. I wasn't. I'll tell you what. I'm going to give you a link to my website, and you can go there and read it for yourself. Let me just put this in the chat. Oops. If you go to my website, all of the proofs are there, and you can just read them one by one. So there's one on the eye, and there's one on the retina, as an example. I mentioned that I blogged them first. I wrote them all in one by one, and I put them up on a blog, and then I made a book out of it. So this website will take you to the blog, each of the blog posts, and in some ways it's better than the book because the book is in black and white and doesn't have that many pictures. But the blog has a lot more pictures that I found to to enhance the proof. So, and it links to videos and things like that as well. So you can use that, or you find a good one, you can send it out to your friends. Hey, look at this. Send it to your grandkids.
Connect with electricity.
I'm waiting for some homeschoolers to pick up this book and spread it, because I think it would be great for homeschoolers.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Hey, Jim, from animals and plants, what is it among them?
What is it?
What from animals and plants, what among, if you had to choose one that really touches a person's faith in God, which animal or plant would that be?
Really, I'm sorry, really makes it difficult to believe in God?
No, that on the contrary, that makes it easy to believe in God by observing them.
Animals and plants.
Wow, that's a big question.
Now, I did one proof on pollination, I think it was called.
Pollination?
Pollination. Let me look. Huh? I mean, yeah, pollination, number 51. Pollination is unbelievable. I mean, there are some plants where you've got to get the pollen way, way down inside, and the timing has to be perfect, and or you've got to have the exact right kind of insect to come along to pollinate that plant. It's unbelievable how complicated it is. Or the wind has to blow the pollen to the plant. I mean, it's like how evolution could possibly take place with that kind of odds against it is amazing. Yeah.
Jim?
It's incredible. One thing after everywhere you look. Look around your room. Everything there is proof for God. That was one of my proofs. Everything in your room. Yeah. Nothing in your room was not created by somebody except you, supposedly.
Yeah. St. Paul said, that people who look at nature and says, well, God does not exist, they have no excuse.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sadly, that's true.
Yeah.
But it's
Alan? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I don't need to say anything on that.
No, Jim, so just generally for your 101 proofs, it's great. But how would you, as an overall thing, how would you address like a guy who says, I believe in science, and if you have given enough chances and enough time, I think that's the basic argument, right? So let's say you have a million different things, and then one of them turns out and that works, and then something develops that if as long as you have enough mutations, then one of them will survive, and they're all accidental or survival of the fittest. And then
I addressed that in one of the proofs that given enough time, actually there are a lot of things that you can think about that won't happen given infinity. Like the moon is not going to change to green cheese, so the theory of evolution, given enough time, it would require billions and billions of times the age of the universe, if the calculations were correct. It's not going to happen. It's so infinitesimally small. And they say, but not zero. Okay, all right. But for all practical purposes, zero. And another scientific argument they'll throw at you is called the God of the gaps. We say that, well, we believe God exists because this is not explainable by science. It's only can be explained by a higher being. And they say, well, we just haven't discovered enough science to know how that evolved. And so, all right, that makes some sense. But the problem is that those gaps, if you look at them scientifically, are getting wider and wider and wider. The more the science digs into it, the more they find out that this is more impossible than we thought. In the beginning, they thought that it was just the Earth going around the sun, and there were just a few things required for life to form on the Earth. But as they went forward in discoveries, they find that more and more things are required. Like you have to have a planet like Jupiter. The gravitational field of the planet Jupiter protects life on Earth. So you have to have a planet that has a molten core and has tectonic plates. It goes on and on. They're up to over 200 right now. There's over 200 requirements for life on Earth, for the solar system of the universe. So it's getting worse and worse for people who want to claim that we just haven't discovered the science behind it yet. Science is showing more and more that there has to be God. And they have a thing called SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. So they're looking out into space, and they developed some parameters for how they would recognize intelligence coming from outer space. Well, they've been doing that for years and years, decades. They haven't gotten any intelligence from outer space. But there were some guys who took those parameters that they were looking for life and outer space, and they applied those to DNA. And it turns out that DNA is from intelligent life. So science, my book is full of science that shows there has to be God. And every one of the proofs that people say proves God doesn't exist, if you really look at it, it's pretty shallow. But they claim they're really smart and intellectual, and that I'm a dummy. Yeah, okay. You think if there's spirit world, I just noticed that today. If there's life after death, now how does that evolve? How do you explain that by materialistic evolution, life after death? So, okay, I could go on, but please ask me a question.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Isn't anthropology man's study of the environment to understand the people of the past?
Sorry, I couldn't really understand what you asked. Something about anthropology?
Right. When human beings study things of the material world so that they can understand past civilizations or past human beings, that's anthropology, correct?
Yeah.
Well, isn't there an analogy? You're studying things to understand the human that existed in a certain period of time. So why not turn that around and say, well, if you want to understand God, study the physical world.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Oh, so that's clear to you, right? That's clear
What?
in your mind. That's a clear understanding in your mind, right? You understand? Okay, okay.
I have a couple comments. First of all, Jim, outstanding. I haven't read the 101 Proofs, but I do have the second book, Second Coming of Christ. And as I'm reading, I can visualize everything that I read. And so far, it seems like it's even deeper than the autobiography. There might have been some things in the autobiography, but I was thinking about to get my spiritual life stronger, that I need to read the Divine Principle. But actually, this book about Father's life is really it's galvanized me spiritually, and that's really what I need in my life right now. When you were talking about the body, I just read something years ago. I read something that the before conception, the egg actually picks which sperm that she wants. I'm not really sure if that's true, but I'm thinking if she got 50 million sperm coming after her, she's really quick, or she can see far, if that's really true. And I believe that. I just saw read something recently, as far as the woman's makeup, the vagina, the placenta, the uterus, and all these different things. I just read something recently that it's the male sperm that's the catalyst for the umbilical cord. Well, most people will probably think, well, it must come from the woman, but no, that's not true. It's really the man's sperm, which is part of the conception, which really ignites the umbilical cord.
Wow.
That is new. That is, phenomenal. So we learned
That's
something
like a
every
good
day.
argument for Roddy. That's like a good argument for why lesbians are not meant to have children, or, it's not part of Heavenly Father's plan for women, right? Perhaps as a couple to have children, to have a family, and vice versa for two men as well, right?
And they just adopt. But let me just, I'm reading The Life of Faith in the Chung Sung Gyong. And Jim, when you were talking about faith, True Father says faith means believing in and reverently attending God. I mean, that basically just puts it in a nutshell. Because I tell people I can't stand up in front of a whiteboard and explain what faith is. It's really something that someone really has to experience. And that's just the way it is. So anyway, thank you, brother, and continue the good work.
Thank you, Roderick.
Just that about the sperm and the egg. Yeah, we learned that when we were attending Smart Marriages conferences, I think it was, that they used to think that a lot of sperm would attack the egg and weaken the shell of the egg, and then finally one sperm would get in there. But the most recent research was that the sperm lay on the outside of the egg, and the egg actually chooses one of the sperm and opens up and allows it to come in. So they don't know why why the egg chooses that sperm, but the theory is that the immune system of the egg and the sperm is the most different, so that you'll get the healthiest baby.
Okay.
I mean, is that a miracle or what? And then they've also learned that there's a spark. When the fertilization takes place, there's actually a spark of light that happens.
Exactly.
ball.
So
Wow.
so it's not a situation where the sperm wins the lottery. He's basically chosen by the egg. I'm joking a little bit, but you understand.
I couldn't catch. My computer sound is pretty low, I'm afraid.
I was saying it's not that the sperm wins the lottery, but I guess in a lot of ways the sperm who the egg chooses does win a lottery.
Yeah. Yeah, there's your real lottery in life right there.
Lottery, but that is fascinating. That is fascinating.
I had another experience with God when I was, what was it? I was giving a lecture on something and I can't remember, but God showed me another kind of series of panels of that God was intending to create, the creation, but the final creation was a woman, because that would be reproducing the image of God, right? So the woman is the final goal that God has. So, God in his mind he creates the womb and he realizes, okay, we have to cleanse the womb. So there has to be a cycle of 30 days so that the, blood flows there and the fertility time, it gets ready. If no egg is fertilized, then there has to be a cleansing process, right? So the woman can only get pregnant for a few days every month. So then back up one step. Okay, we got to create a man. But if God's thinking, if I create the man with a fertility cycle of only a few days in a month, what if two people get married and their fertility cycles never match up? They could never have kids.
Right.
So God's realized, I have to make man fertile every single day. Otherwise, it's not possible. It wouldn't work out very well for the woman to get pregnant. So, and of course, you've got to replenish the supply of sperm. So a man's body is producing, 100 million sperm a day. And it builds up. So God knows that a man, after he has sex and ejaculates, 3 days later, he's all ready to go again. That's the way God made it. A lot of sisters are thinking that, my husband's fallen nature. He wants to have sex all the time. No, that's the way God made him. He had to make him that way so that you could have babies. I was so happy to hear that.
Yeah.
So,
Makes sense.
when Father said we have
I'm
sex
sure
in the
your
spirit
brothers
world,
are happy
wow,
too.
great! I'm glad we have sex for all eternity. This is fantastic. Father said so many things about sex. You just do a search. Chun Sung Kyung. It almost never stops. It's incredible. So we love that. My wife was the first Japanese woman to ever talk about sex in America publicly.
It's
They had an educators conference in Barrytown, and our topic was sex, and the room was packed. Absolute sex, of course.
I'm so grateful. Your prayer and how to educate the children, and go down to the 10 years birthday, you start the sexual education.
Yeah.
It is amazing. And I myself, I couldn't really teach, and my, English still barrier, but raising, so many problems, but especially I was struggling with the TV. And did you have, once you can educate sexual education, maybe you can let children can watch TV, but I was always struggle, kids can learn wrong, sex education through TV? And how did you control your family? That's a little curious.
We
Good
we had
question.
we had a rule during the week, no TV,
Oh, okay.
only on weekends.
After,
Every weekend.
homework.
After homework on weekends, of course. And then the rule was each child got to watch 1 hour of
Wow.
whatever they wanted to watch.
Okay.
So
We have
5 kids, so that was 5 hours of TV every weekend.
I see.
But they got really smart.
What they do.
they,
copy.
they would negotiate with each other a lot. And so my second daughter was the mechanical one, and she's a professor now at Duke. Anyway, she really learned how to control the VCR. So they could control with a half-hour program, you're going to get commercials in there. So they could get 3 half-hour programs in 1 hour.
Oh,
By using the VCR. And and they would also, okay, you want to watch this and I want to watch this, so who's going to claim it,
Also game time. Extended.
Oh yeah, game time. We limited games. They understood the value of limiting games and stuff, so we didn't have a lot of pushback from them. That's the way it was. So,
Thank you.
yeah,
wow.
that's a long time ago.
Wow. Thank you.
Yeah, my youngest is 34. Crazy, huh?
And I can see, you and your wife's relationship is so smooth, and but is there a way to overcome some breakthrough, some special experience?
Great sensory experience.
Both of us had parents who never argued. So we grew up that way, and there wasn't anything that was so important that I really had to argue about it. So, so we had a good relationship, but then when we went to Smart Marriages conferences and we started reading books for Blessed Family Department, we learned a whole lot of other skills that have come into play. Things like the 5 love languages. That's really, really precious information. That was a gift from God, I believe, because Gary Chapman was really looking for that kind of an answer. So we had all of our kids, they took the survey, the questionnaire, and we wrote down their scores for each of the 5 love languages, and we made a spreadsheet and we put it on the refrigerator. So we understood, okay, this person's physical touch, this person's quality time. Makes a big difference when you know about another person's love language. But then a few years after that, Gary Chapman did another book called The 5 Languages of Apology. They did research on 2,000 people they interviewed. What do you consider a genuine apology? And they put it all together and they came up with 5 different, surprisingly, 5 different things that people were considered the most important thing if a person was going to sincerely apologize. And so it turns out that if your spouse is apologizing to you, but it's not your apology language, you don't feel it's sincere.
I see.
That was a painful realization because you could be given the most sincere apology you possibly can, but your spouse may just right over the head. They're not getting it. And just immediately you can see the problems between spouses, between parents and children, between friends, bosses, everything. You can see how everything is all screwed up because people don't know how to say I'm sorry in a way that can be recognized as genuine apology. We are really lucky because we have the same apology language. And it's the simplest one of I'm sorry. So that works for us because we relate to that. But if your spouse's apology language is, what can I do to make it better? And you're expecting your spouse to do something, and they don't have any idea that they have to do something besides apologize, it never works. It doesn't, you don't ever reconnect. You know, our relationship with God is broken. Our relationship with people is broken. How do we repair the relationships? And it requires an apology, repentance. That was very significant. And you know, some people want to hear the words, I was wrong. Some people want to say, I was sorry. People want to hear,
I will never again do it.
I'll try never to do it again. That kind of thing. I gave a whole sermon in Virginia. It's posted on my YouTube channel. If you're interested in that kind of thing, go there and just, you know, you can buy the book, but just to get a 1 hour overview, watch my sermon on that. My YouTube channel is Jim Stevens 5, the number 5. And I put up there a lot of videos of lectures and testimonies and things like that. You can watch. But that might really help your relationship. I found that to be one of the most profound books I've ever read. And it has ramifications for every relationship you have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Wow. You know what? We're going to have to conclude for now.
Sure.
But
One
wow.
more, please. One more, please. One more.
Who's that?
This is a good one.
Okay, this is the last one. And then we can always have Jim back if he comes.
I have a reputation as a blabbermouth, okay? I have a reputation. So I can say I'm in presence of a bunch of scientists here, so I'll keep it short. I've done manual labor since I was 12 years old, a skinny little kid, 12 years old, golf caddy. I retired early, 62 years old, from in the kitchen of one of the cafeterias of a major hospital in the tri-state area surrounding Nebraska. Retired from 7 years working with a bunch of college students, and to help pass the time, I would give them nicknames. Not to give nicknames, but before I give them a nickname, I make sure it was okay with them. So I want to run one by you, sir. Can we start calling you King James? And if so, the next time you write a book, entitle it, whatever it is, the King James version of, and that'll help increase your sales.
Okay, that was worth
All right.
hearing.
Thank you, Frederick.
The completed testament, King James version.